What a difference a year makes. This time last year, I was eating pizza with a veteran of many visits to Iraq and Afghanistan and elsewhere, who was just days away from deploying to Iraq again. Now, 365 days later, we've an even deeper appreciation for those people who put everything on the line for this country and the sacrifices they make for all of us. For the past year, we've been exchanging messages and photos with friends and relatives who are in the sandbox, trying to, in their words, do their jobs there so they don't have to do the same job here at home. The stories I'm about to relay are real. They are meant to be representative of what the men and women we honor today are all about. A few nights ago, the doorbell rang at our house, and it was a very dear friend who just got back from his tour in Baghdad. It was wonderful to see him in one piece. After the hugs and greetings were done, we sat down and saw a boy who had become a man. His personality much the same, but he had matured, having faced the unspeakable and witnessed the demise of comrades in arms who can speak no more. You could see the stress on his face, but you could also see that he was proud of his service and was just trying to wade through how he was going to put that behind him and press forward, with a life without bullets and mortar rounds exploding around him. Put it away as best you can was all I could recommend. Try not to dwell on it, except to gather strength from the memories that show that we are much luckier as a nation than where you have been. No one can understand the things that he's seen and heard, so it will likely always be a quiet memory that only he can fully understand. One statement he told us was very telling. He expressed his disappointment with the public's understanding of what he witnessed firsthand. He could see the reports on TV and read them in the newspapers of what was supposedly going on over there around him. He knew that there was bloodshed and violence. He saw it firsthand. He knew that was the nature of war. However, there was also kindness shown by grateful people. That was not generally portrayed in the doom and gloom reports that flashed across the television screen. He says people walked up to him and said thank you. He seldom saw anything like that shown to the American public. The negative coverage created better pictures than the smiles that he saw on native faces. But after a couple of hours of hugs and handshakes, we bid our patriot good night. So very proud of him. We knew he now bore the scars of war, scars that will never heal, but that if nursed properly will make him stronger as a man. Amazingly, he also had a brother who deployed with him, and they actually went over there on the same plane. But they came home a few weeks apart, so we anxiously await to see his brother too, if only for a few minutes, just to say thank you. We're also waiting to see another friend, who just got back a few weeks ago after spending more than a year over there. During that time, he wrote us about some of his escapades and dealing up close and personal with the enemy. He was shot a couple of times, and luckily his body armor stopped the bullets. So he only had a couple of bruises when he picked himself up, but the armor didn't stop the emotional damage caused when someone tries to kill you and gets so close to doing it. But he put those thoughts away in his rucksack, and he plowed on. He had 5 or 6 vehicles that he was riding in, blown from underneath him by roadside bombs and shoulder-mounted rockets. He caught a bit of shrapnel during one of those encounters. I also remember a message from him once saying that he was out on patrol and a mortar fell just a few feet away from him and his buddy. As he described it, they heard the round coming toward them. They hit the dirt. They saw it land. And a few moments later, they opened their eyes and looked at each other, and one of them said, "We're either dead or that was a dud." They got up and they walked away. There must have been a guardian angel watching over them. Plenty of other nights they had to deal with a barrage of incoming shells that weren't duds, landing all around them. It made those few precious hours they had to sleep pretty tough to endure. Imagine living like that for months on end. It takes a toll on your mind. Off to his east, we had a relative working his missions, the pizza man. He'd made it over there in November, and early one February morning, the phone rang over here. His wife was shaken by the news that he'd been tagged by a sniper. He was critically wounded, along with another member of his patrol. It was really upsetting to see her later in the day, along with 2 little girls worried about Daddy hurting so far away from home. But he made it. They shipped him home a couple of weeks later. He began a series of surgeries and physical therapy sessions to recover. At first he could not walk. Then he graduated to a walker, and then to a cane. All the time he was nursing surgical wounds from massive holes that the bullet made in his body. While he was hobbling about on his cane, he got bad news. A very good friend and member of his unit had been killed. He was the husband of one of the women that we saw the day that he was shot, consoling and caring for his family. So now He felt a moral obligation to see after his comrade's family. He limped onto a plane, flew to Missouri with a grieving widow, and escorted the fallen hero on his final trip home. He stood beside her through the funeral. It was something that he felt needed to be done, no matter what. You do whatever it takes for your brothers in arms. Months passed before he could visit us, but eventually he felt up to making the trip, and we were thrilled to see him. His recovery was slower than he wanted, but he realized it was all part of the process. Except for mentioning an occasional searing pain, he never grunted about his discomfort. Then one night, on my way home in early summer, I was talking to him on the phone, and he told me he was going back. His unit was still there, and he felt he needed to be with them. They needed to see that a soldier could go down, get up, and return to complete the mission. So now he is back over there, side by side with his men, limping a bit and doing his country's bidding. His foot's still not responding normally because the main nerve was nicked by the bullet, but he's making it. His unit is starting to return home, and I would not be surprised if he waited to come back with the last of them. That's what the leader of warriors do. Now, right in the middle of his ordeal, we learned our daughter was selected to be part of a special team being deployed. She's there now, kept busy at home base when not out on missions, facing down bad guys and doing what she's trained to do. She doesn't talk a lot about what she's doing, but she made it clear that she's seeing and doing things that have changed her outlook on life. All I know for sure is she loads up in a vehicle or a plane, goes out on a mission, and then returns to her office to work on reports until they have another job for her to go out and do. Despite emotional wounds and broken bones, she continues her efforts to complete her part of the mission. One of her driving forces is to come home with Santa Claus to see her little boy again. I was talking to someone a few months ago about what she was doing, and they made the comment, well, she volunteered to go over there. That was a very telling statement for me. It gave me some insight into how there can be such divergent views about what our men and women in uniform do when they're sent off to war. Using a certain kind of logic, I guess that statement is true. They did join the military. They weren't drafted. They do train for war. They do know it is a distinct possibility that they will be sent into battle to use those skills. So, from that perspective, yes, they did volunteer to go. Using that same warped logic, you could say that a person who drives a car capable of 120 miles per hour wants to drive at 120 miles an hour. And that same logic would also say that a coal miner who works in a mine where they could contract black lung disease volunteered to get the disease. I'm afraid it's not quite that simple. Very few people ever put on the uniform to go to war. And our military is not necessarily meant to go to war. They're there to protect the nation. They act as a deterrent to those who would do harm to our country, its people, and assets that we rely on so that we can live and work in a safe society. The military is like a policeman's gun. He carries it to be used if needed, but he doesn't walk around pointing it at any and everyone that he meets. He won't hesitate to use it if the threat presents itself, but for the most part, it's just there, cleaned and ready, just in case. Those who come home and volunteer to go back, or who re-enlist knowing that action could bring with it the need to pick up arms and go into battle, have no desire to endure the sacrifices and rigors of war. They're not anxious to risk being wounded or killed. Most are ready to face down the enemy because they feel the threat to his or her family, to their nation, and to peace in general. They worry about their brothers and sisters in uniform, and whether or not they will have to shoulder the battle without them. Veterans bear the scars of their experiences. Some scars are physical, but most are inside. They remember seeing the cold stare of another human being that wanted to kill them. They remember feeling the shock of being blown down by a nearby explosion. They remember the hot tears they felt when they watched a fellow soldier close his eyes for the final time. Our soldiers twist their brains trying to anticipate the next move of an enemy that thinks from a totally different perspective. Not only will the enemy die for his cause, but he'll also sacrifice innocent women and children, all in an effort to make a small, soon-forgotten statement that only the soldier will remember because he saw it, and the rest of the world was too busy trying to focus on the bigger picture of why the soldier was there to see the carnage in the first place. I've talked to some who prefer not to wear the uniform in public when they come home. They know that there are those who appreciate them, but there are others that would rather spit on them, seeing them as representatives of a political agenda that they happen to disagree with. To the soldier, those encounters are best avoided. Soldiers are held to a higher standard. They're expected to wipe off that spit and keep going because Americans have the right to disagree. Ironically, it's a right that the soldier risked his life to preserve. The American soldier is trained to be obedient. They're supposed to follow orders, even if they can't see how those orders make any sense. That goes so far as to even put their life in danger, sometimes even let the enemy take a pot shot at them and then get away. I've heard stories of how a patrol may come under fire before they can shoot back. They have to get permission from some battle staff where the lawyers and commanders debate the liabilities of opening a firefight, while the poor grunt's sitting out there with his life and mission on the line. Others report having to pick up the enemy casualties and carry them back to where families can claim the bodies, and then having to answer a barrage of questions about why he killed the guy that was trying to kill him. War is an ugly business. Few soldiers desire to engage in it. Most would rather be eating a hot dog, watching a football game, or going to church with the rest of us. Instead, they do what needs doing, and hope that they will have the opportunity to come home and do those normal things again. So, they clean their weapons, go without showers or a hot meal for days on end, and keep pushing toward getting their little piece of the job done. And they rely on the other brethren in uniform to do their jobs to complete the overall mission. The pressures of the job exceed anything any briefcase-toting executive ever faced. The pressures exceed anything any football player ever faced on the gridiron. They are not playing a game for a trophy, but a game of survival that, if lost, means life-threatening wounds, torture, or even death. Worst of all, losing means the enemy continues to pose a threat to his home. These are the kinds of stories lived time and time again by the people we honor today. They are the warriors that gave it their all, facing down the enemy. They are the brothers and mothers, fathers and cousins, who have had the courage to face those that cross swords with our patriots. Our veterans have seen the abyss. Whether it was in one of the world wars, Korea, Vietnam, Somalia, Bosnia, Afghanistan, Iraq, or some other violent place, they have seen what we must fight to stay free. Today is the day that we thank them for dealing with those threats, so that the average Joe can be proud to live in the most powerful nation in the world, so we can know what it feels like to truly have liberty and freedom.